Hello and welcome. My name is Cade Akers. I am an undergrad at Kirkwood Community College. I spent 2 years as undergrad at University of Iowa in 7 different majors, but we finally made it to nursing major here at Kirkwood Community College. And I'm finishing up some prereqs. This video is for Anatomy and Physiology 2. We're going over the immune system, and so today I'll take you through the 3 lines of defense that the immune system has. So the first one are barriers, and then the second one is the non-specific immunity, and the third is the specific immunity. And so we'll start with the first line of the defense, which is the barriers. And so the mnemonic that I use for this that our class came up with is eat corn more more heavily, good ass sleep. So it's going to be eat epithelia, corn would be cilia, more would be mucus, heavily would be hair, good would be gastric juice, ass is antimicrobial proteins, and sleep would be symbiotic bacteria. So I'll just kind of take you through these. So for each line of defense, I've got a whiteboard here that I'm going to write down, and I'm going to clear the board after each line of defense. So the first one we're going to start with is epithelia. So what are your epithelia? Your epithelia is your outermost covering of your skin. So this is the epithelial layer of my skin, and what it does is it covers all surfaces and cavities. So it acts as a barrier, not allowing some bacteria and viruses in through covering all of their surfaces and such. The next one we have is cilia. And cilia are like hair-like, I don't want to say appendages, but hair-like features that will sweep bacteria away from lungs, at least in the immune system. And cilia have other functions outside of the immune system, but for now, it's going to sweep bacteria away from the lungs, right? Okay. And then we have mucus. And what is mucus? And mucus, as you can probably tell when you spit up mucus, it's sticky and gross, right? So it's a sticky trap for bacteria. Okay. Okay. So we have eat corn more heavily. We have hair. Okay. So hair. What does hair do? Where is your hair at? Well, most of it is on your head, right? Right. And what does that do? It protects your head from abrasions. So if you were to fall on your head and scrape your head on something, your hair is going to act as a barrier protecting that. And it also will alert for insects in your hair or on your head. So like, if you have a fly just buzzing around you, annoying the heck out of you, your hair is going to let you know. Okay. The next one is gastric juice. So what is gastric juice? Where is it? Well, gastric juice is in the stomach, right? And gastric juice is hydrochloric acid, okay? So it's HCl. HCl, hydrochloric acid, that kills pathogens in the stomach. Okay. And then we move on to, so we have eat corn more heavily, good ass. All right, antimicrobial proteins. And basically what these do is they just put holes in bacteria. And the proteins. And hence the name antimicrobial proteins. Proteins that put holes in bacteria. And then finally, we have our symbiotic bacteria, right? And where does symbiotic bacteria live? Throughout the GI tract, right? And what do? So symbiotic bacteria is good bacteria that will fight by defending its own turf. Right? So you have good bacteria throughout your GI tract, all right? And then you have, if you have bad bacteria that comes in through that GI tract, your good bacteria is going to defend itself and defend its home, right? And it's going to try to kill that bad bacteria. Okay, so this is the first line of defense. First line of defense, LOD, line of defense, okay? And this first line of defense, again, is called barriers. These are physical barriers to pathogens, okay? And I will try to get a better picture here. There. So again, we have epithelia, cilia, mucus, hair, gastric juice, antimicrobial proteins, and symbiotic bacteria. And again, our mnemonic is eat corn more heavily. Good ass sleep. That's what it is. That's mine, at least. You're more than welcome to create your own, but that's the one that I use for that one. And then moving on to the second line of defense here. This one is going to be your non-specific. All right. So when I say non-specific, I mean it's going to fight all pathogens, right? It's not going to be specific to a certain antigen, a certain virus, certain bacteria. And so it's going to attempt to fight all of it. Okay. So we're going to start out with our mnemonic here. Our mnemonic here is passing notes in class is fun. I will write out what we got here. So the first one, passing, is going to be phagocytes. Phagocytes. And what do phagocytes do? Well, phagocytes, or what are they? Sorry, what are they? And phagocytes are a variety of cells with specializations. I'm trying to write fast here, but you know how it goes. All right, and so a couple of specializations here. We have neutrophils. And what are neutrophils? They fight off bacteria. Okay. And then we also have eosinophils. And what are eosinophils fighting? Worms. So how does it work? How do phagocytes work? Well, it's pretty simple. Phagocytes will engulf pathogens and debris. Okay, so that's phagocytes. That's P, right? And P is passing, right? Passing notes in class is fun. P. Passing notes. Notes is natural killer cells, or abbreviated NK cells. I'm going to use the abbreviation just to save room here. But know that NK means natural killer cells. Okay? So, what are natural killer cells? Well, natural killer cells, kind of blanking right now, but natural killer cells are, they monitor the body for abnormal cells. And this includes like cancer cells, infection, and toxins. Okay, and so how do they work? And there's a 3-step process to this one. So first, it'll rotate the Golgi apparatus to the target. Okay. Next, it's going to release perforin. And remember perforin and what it does, because it also comes in play throughout the third line of defense too. So release perforin. And number 3, it's going to put holes in that cell with that, and the target with that perforin. So we're going to put holes in the target. Okay, and that is your natural killer cells, what they are and how they work. Next one, passing notes in. What is in? Interferons. Okay. And what is the role of interferons? Well, the interferon is a virus warning system. Okay. And so, what do you think it does? It warns the body about viruses. Okay, so how does it do that? Well, how? In cells infected with the virus. Sorry, I'm writing here. They will release interferon, and that is going to tell your neighboring cells to turn off your ribosomes. And why do we want to do that? Well, what do ribosomes do? Ribosomes make proteins, right? So if you have a cell that is infected with a virus and it's continuing to make proteins, that virus is going to use those proteins to replicate the virus. And then your more cells are going to become infected and you're going to be sick, right? So your body is trying to tell your ribosomes, stop making those proteins until we fight off this virus. Okay, so that's interferon. So we have passing notes in class, all right? So I can't do only one finger at a time, I guess. Anyway, class. What is class? Complement. The complement system. Okay. And what is the complement system? Well, the complement system is a group of proteins that will do a few different things. It will stimulate inflammation. It will tag your cells for your phagocytes, so it'll tag infected cells, so your phagocytes can come and do their job. Okay, and then it will also put holes in the target, which seems to be a common theme, putting holes in the target. Well, okay. So how does it do this? So your complement system will find bacteria on its own, or it will be alerted by your antibodies. Okay. So that's your complement system. Okay, so moving on, for our last two, we have inflammation and fever. So we'll start with inflammation. What is inflammation? I'm sure most of you know what inflammation is, or at least a general idea of what inflammation is. But I'm going to explain, what it really is and how it works, honestly. So, what is inflammation? Inflammation is fluid to damage. Okay, so fluid is going to flow to damage. Okay, and so what are some hallmarks of inflammation? Redness, swelling, and heat and pain. That's some hallmarks of inflammation. And how does this work? How does it fight? Well, it fights three ways. Okay, so the first one is the fluid is going to bring healing products to the site. Okay. Number two, the fluid's going to bring in immune fighters. And lastly, your fluid's going to oppose the spread of pathogens. Okay. That's inflammation. And then finally, we have fever. And so again, I'm sure most of you know what fever is. When you're sick and you feel hot and your mom comes in and touches her hand on your head, oh, you have a fever. Yeah, she's probably right. So let's get into it. What is fever? Well, fever is when the pyrogens that are released from your pathogens are telling the hypothalamus to raise the body temp. Okay. And so how does that work? How does that work? Well, two ways. Number one, it's going to speed up your metabolism. Okay. One, speeds up metabolism. Right? Okay. And then number two, it's going to tell your liver and spleen to hang on to your zinc and iron. Okay, because those are needed by your other microorganisms that are at work. All right, so I apologize for the writing. It's not as organized as I'd wished, but so this is your non-specific immunity, the second line of defense. And again, I'll go through it here. We have phagocytes. So what are they? They are a variety of cells that have specializations, and these specializations are neutrophils and eosinophils. Neutrophils are fighting bacteria. Eosinophils are fighting worms. And then how does it work? They engulf pathogens and debris. Then we move on to natural killer cells. Natural killer cells monitor the body for abnormal cells like cancer cells, infected cells, and toxins. And it works by rotating the Golgi apparatus to the target, releasing perforin, and then putting holes in the target. And then we have interferon, and interferon is a virus warning system, and it works by, I can't read, by the cells that are infected with the virus. It will release interferon and tell the neighboring cells that they need to stop making proteins and shut off those ribosomes. And then we have our complement system, and our complement system is a group of proteins that stimulate inflammation, tag cells for phagocytes to come and do their job, and they also put holes in the target. And how does that work? It works by finding bacteria on its own, or it'll be alerted by antibodies. Then we have inflammation and fever. Inflammation is fluid to damage, and hallmarks of inflammation include redness, swelling, heat, and pain. And how does it work? Fluid brings in healing products, brings in immune fighters, and it opposes the spread of pathogens. And then finally, we have fever. And fever is when pyrogens released from the pathogens tell the hypothalamus to raise the body temperature, and then it works in two ways. It'll speed up your metabolism as well as tell your spleen and your liver to hold on to the zinc and iron that are needed by microorganisms. I'm going to bring this up a little closer so maybe you can get a better look at it. Maybe take a picture of it if you want. There you go. So that's line of defense number 2. And then finally, we're going to get on to the third line of defense, which is your specific or adaptive immune system. Okay, and this one's a little bit more complex. So it's going to take a bit. And I'll try to go a little bit slower here. So, your specific immunity. Okay, and it's going to go off into 2 different channels, right? I don't really want to say channels, but 2 different portions. All right, so you're going to have your cell-mediated, you're going to have your antibody or humoral mediated, okay? Antibody / humoral mediated, okay? Okay, and with these, you're going to have T cells and B cells. Okay, so your T cells, you've got 3 types of T cells here. So the first one that we're not really going to cover is your T suppressor cell, your TS cell. Okay, and that's just kind of going to tell things to chill out, suppress it. Okay, and the next one is your TC cell. That's going to be on your cell-mediated side. Your TC cell is a cytotoxic T cell. That's what this T stands for, or the C stands for. And it can also be coined CD8. Okay, so we have CD8 cells, which are cytotoxic T cells. And what do? They're going to make memory, and they're going to make more active cells. Okay, and so a couple more features with this is, let's say you have an infected cell with strep. Okay, this cell is going to have what is called a major histocompatibility complex 1. So MHC class 1. Okay, and MHC class 1s are on all cells with a nucleus, and I'll kind of show you what it is here in a minute. So this right here, this little funky looking thing is your MHC class 1. Okay, and that's going to be able to bind to that antigen and allow that cytotoxic T cell to take action. Okay, the next type of T cell we have is a TH cell or T helper cell. Okay, and so they have pretty much a similar way of working here, and these are CD4. Okay, CD4 cells. Okay, and so same scenario here. We have a cell infected with strep. And these also have MHC complexes on it, but it's a different class. These are MHC class 2. And MHC class 2, they're found on all antigen-presenting cells in the lymph nodes. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And I will label your MHCs here in a sec. HC1, and I'm going to use Roman numerals. You don't have to. I do because I think it looks cool, because it does. HC class 2. Okay, and then your last type of cell is going to be your B lymphocyte, or your B cell. Okay, and your B cell is going to be on antibody and humorally mediated. Okay, and so this is different because instead of having your major histocompatibility complex, you're going to have antibodies that are going to bind to your antigens, right? And these B cells are specialized to a certain antigen. Okay. And so the infected cell is going to look a little bit different than it would be for a T cell and any T cell, because your antigens are going to be outside of the cell, and that's going to allow that antibody to bind to it. I'll show you here in a second what that looks like. Okay, and so we have here these are your antibodies right here, these Y shapes coming out of that B cell, and that antibody is actually the IgD. Okay, that's your IgD antibody, but that's not really important yet. And so that's where that's going to bind. And all three of these, again, they will make memory. Okay, so they're going to remember that virus, and then they're also going to make more active cells. And then what those more active cells do are a little bit different for each. So your cytotoxic T cells, when you make more cytotoxic T cells, it's going to do the same thing that the other one did, right? It's going to keep fighting those pathogens. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. Okay. So again, standard are the same thing, right? It's the same thing. But your TH cells, T helper cells, CD4 cells, blah, blah, blah. TH, it's also going to have the same job as the other TH cell, and it's going to fight off your pathogens. But it's also going to go help out your cytotoxic T cells if it's not bound to anything, right? If it's not fighting a pathogen, it's going to go help out your cytotoxic T cells, hence T helper cell, right? Okay. There. So we have your TH cell is going to be doing the same thing, except if it's not binding to anything, you're going to go help out that cytotoxic T cell. Like so. Okay? And then your B cells. B cells also going to make more active cells and make memory. But this is a little bit different because it can also bind to your TH cells, and your TH cells can help out with that. But your more active B cells are going to be called plasma cells. And what do plasma cells do? They make antibodies. Right? Okay. That's kind of what that looks like. So you have your TH cell that's going to bind to your B cell. That's going to help that out. But your B cell here, that is that more active cell, it's going to be a plasma cell, and it's going to make antibodies. So that those antibodies can attach to your B cell, and your B cell can fight off pathogens. And so I'm just going to kind of get a little wordy here, and we're going to kind of go over a couple things. So first thing, I'm going to define antigen. So what is an antigen? Well, an antigen is anything that your immune system attacks, with a couple constraints. Okay, so it has to be large, complex, a threat, and non-self. Which kind of makes sense, right? Don't want to be fighting yourself. You want to fight something that's actually going to hurt you. You want to leave the simple things for first and second line of defense, and large things. Yeah, that also makes sense, I guess. So next thing, we have a couple definitions here. Number one is where are T cells matured? So T cells are maturing in the thymus. And your B cells, where they mature? Bone. So B cells will mature in bone. Okay, and we're going to go back to the MHC2. I'm just going to write down where those are found, or your MHC1, MHC2, and where those are found. So your MHC1, again, is going to be found in all cells with a nucleus. Okay. And then your MHC class 2, those are found in all antigen-presenting cells, or APCs, in the lymph nodes. APCs in lymph nodes. Right? So there's a couple definitions. So next I'm going to go a little bit over antibodies, how they work, what they are, and then also I'm going to review how your cytotoxic T cells will work. So to start, we're going to do antibodies. What are your antibodies? There's an acronym that we like to use to remember this. It's called MAG. Okay, so you have IgM, IgA, IgD, IgG, and IgE. Okay. IgM. IgM are your first antibodies made. Okay. IgA. IgA are your antibodies in the epithelia. Okay. Then your IgD, like I said before, it's going to be your on your B lymphocytes. Okay, that's what your antigens are attaching to. Okay, B lymphocytes. Okay, and then you have IgG, and IgG are old antibodies. Okay, and then you have IgE, and IgE is involved in inflammation. And I think I'm running out of room here, but we're gonna make it work. So that is what your antibodies are and what they do. And now we're gonna go over how they work. So how do antibodies work? They work by doing 4 different processes. So first one is neutralization or surround. Okay, they're going to neutralize and surround your antigen. Okay, and then number 2, it's going to agglutinate. Okay, and what does agglutinate mean? Pretty much just clumping large things. Okay, number 3 is going to be precipitate, which is clumping small things. And then 4 is going to activate the complement system, which we already went over. What does the complement system do? The complement system stimulates inflammation. It will tag cells for phagocytes, and it will put holes in the target. Okay? So I'm going to show you this before I go over how cytotoxic T cells work. This is going to be a quick thing. Okay. So here we have your T suppressor cell up here. That's just kind of off to the side because I didn't really go over it. And so we have our specific immunity. All right. So you have cell mediated. Okay. These two are cell mediated. You have your cytotoxic T cell, your CD8 cell, and these ones have your MHC1 complex. Okay. And then you have your T helper cell, CD4, which is an MHC class 2. Okay. And then you have your B lymphocyte B cell that's specialized. Okay, it's specialized, and you have your antibodies here. These are IgD antibodies. Okay, and your B cells, your more active B cells that are created are plasma cells, and these plasma cells will create antibodies. Okay, and all 3 of these, they will make memory, so they're going to remember that virus, and then they're also going to make more active cells to fight off that virus. Okay, and your T helper cell again will, if it's not bound to anything, it's going to go help out that cytotoxic T cell. Then down here, we have our definitions. We have antigen, and an antigen is anything the immune system, I have abbreviated IS, immune system attacks, but it has to be large, has to be complex, has to be a threat, and it has to be non-self. And then you have T cells that mature in the thymus, B cells mature in bone, Your MHC class 1 are found in cells with a nucleus, in all cells with a nucleus. You have MHC class 2, which are found in all antigen-presenting cells, APCs, in the lymph nodes. Okay, and then you have your antibodies. We can go back through those again. We have IgA, or IgM, IgA, IgD, IgG, and IgE. Abbreviated or an acronym would be MAG. So IgM are your first antibodies made. IgA are your epithelial antibodies. IgD are on your B lymphocytes up here. These are IgDs. And you have IgG are your old antibodies. And you have IgE is your inflammation. And then how do they work? They neutralize and surround, agglutinate or clump large things, precipitate or clump small things, and then they're going to activate that complement system that's going to stimulate inflammation. They're going to tag cells for phagocytes so they can do their job, and then they're also going to put holes in your target. Okay, and so I'm just going to do a little corner here is going to be for cytotoxic T cells. Okay, so how TC cells work. How do they work? Well, three processes. Okay, so number one, it's going to disrupt your metabolism. Okay, disrupts metabolism. Number two, it's going to tell that cell to self-destruct. And that has a certain phrase to it. It's called apoptosis. I'll write that down here so you can see it. If my handwriting is good enough, we'll see. APOPTOSIS. It's apoptosis. Okay. And the last one is it's going to release perforin. Again, I told you to remember perforin. So it's going to release perforin. And what does perforin do? It puts holes in cells. I can't spell where the heck. Perforin to put holes in cells. Okay. So that's down here in this bottom left corner here where my how antibodies were. So again, we have disrupt metabolism. We're going to have tell that cell to self-destruct, apoptosis. That's terrible spelling, my bad. And then we have release perforin, and that's going to put holes in your cell, in your target. Not cell, but target cell. Same thing. Okay. So yeah, that's your 3 lines of defense and immunity. And again, this was all written out by an undergrad, but it was based off a immune chart that must be replicated on my exam tomorrow. So wish me luck on that, and hope you guys get something out of this. Thanks.